Welcome, everybody, to the Case for Construction Culture podcast. I'm here with Sean Kershaw, Director of Public Works, City of St. Paul. Welcome, Sean.
It's great to be here.
Sean has quite a background. You might know him. Sean has worked at a number of places. He was here at the City of St. Paul in the 90s, I believe, for 10 years. You were also at Wilder for a couple of years, doing some significant changes and work there at a VP level. And you were Executive Director of the Citizens League, is mostly where I remember first learning about you. You were there for, I think, 14 years at the Citizens League. So Sean has quite a history of contributing to Minnesota and to the City of St. Paul. So we're here to talk about, culture, here to talk about safety, challenges you have as a Public Works Director here in St. Paul. I'm just curious, first of all, what you're excited about. It's been kind of a challenging summer, Sean, for you and many of us in many ways, but what are you excited about as you think about what needs to happen here in St. Paul in Public Works?
There's a couple of things come to mind in terms of excitement. One is in 2023, we passed through a ballot initiative, a 1-cent sales tax in St. Paul. And 75% of those funds come to Public Works for street reconstructions. And so it was a big effort to get it through the legislature, and it relied on a lot of the connections that I brought in from the Citizens League and working on legislative issues, and then speaking to the public about the connection between street conditions and money and their role in it. So that passed in 2023, which was really exciting. It's probably about $750 million over 20 years. And what's exciting is we identified which specific streets we would reconstruct in that. So there's about 44 miles of city streets that will be, and they're mostly our main streets that will be reconstructed. And so it's really exciting to work on planning those projects and seeing them come to light. So as a coincidence, my kids went to school near one of the streets, Pelham Boulevard. And for 12 years, twice a day, I drove on that, and it's a concrete nightmare, and it's a bikeway, and it's in horrible condition. And now we get to work with the neighborhood, to plan what type of street do they want, how do we preserve the trees that are there? It's on a sort of a boulevard. How do we add off-street trails? How do we make it safer, for people who ride their bikes through there, drive through there? So it's exciting to have resources to be able to do the things that we want to do. So, and that's advancing safety and sustainability and equity.
Well, that's exciting. 44 miles of streets.
45 miles of streets. I think the second, you asked for two, sorry, is thinking about new snow operations. And people may not see that as exciting because usually, people love to complain about snow in St. Paul. And so we're working with the community, with our drivers across the city on how can we improve snow operations. So it's slow, we're doing it very deliberately. As I say, we're trying to plan for success because people lose elections and jobs over bad snow plowing. And so how can we do something that important better? So it's those types of things, construction and snow plowing is one example. We could talk about garbage, we could talk about streetlights, but trying to make things better for the public is exciting.
Yeah, awesome. I can feel your energy on it. What are your challenges? Boy, we have many challenges these days, don't we, Sean? The world feels a little nuts to me on a lot of levels. But what are some of your challenges? I know some of what's happened here in the city.
Yeah. There are a lot of challenges. There's a lot of challenges for everybody. We're talking the day after, the shooting in Minneapolis.
Yes,
and
unbelievable.
We had employees who lived close enough that they heard the gunfire and, no direct connections, but that affects everybody in the country.
Yes, it does.
The challenge is money is always a challenge. So I mentioned how we're excited about the sales tax. A lot of our other challenges relate to funding, fixing street lights, street maintenance, improving how we provide these really important services. A lot of that relates to money. And so money is always a challenge. I think building a team culture, and we can talk more about that, is a challenge, but it's exciting at the same time. There's no question that the public's mood right now impacts our work. And so I think part of what plays out is if you're frustrated with what's happening in the world that you can't change, whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, you may take that out on the garbage that wasn't picked up on time or the pothole that's not filled quickly enough. And so we've noticed that the public's mood has been more difficult lately and angry, sometimes threatening. I've been in meetings where I've been, hissed at and, told to leave.
Wow.
But I also took the job knowing that was one of the challenges. So, responding to that criticism and supporting, I represent the work, but I don't do the work. And so supporting the people that are doing the work in those settings is a challenge. But I have to add, and we can come back to this if you want, when people see their streetlights come back on, when, just in the last day, I've gotten an email from somebody who sent in an email yesterday on streetlights being out because of copper wire theft. I sent it along to our team, and they were out there that night. And the person got right back to me this morning and said, how much they appreciated that. We're going out and doing crosswalk painting, and we're trying to get caught up. We've got a new piece of equipment for that, and that people, will write in to say they're glad, to see the crosswalks painted. So some of those are pretty basic, but the public's also appreciative when they see work being done and that we're responsive.
So interesting. Safety is really impacted, isn't it, Sean? When people's stress levels are higher, and we live in a world right now where there is some stress feels higher in a lot of ways. The world feels a little uncertain to some of us right now. And what do you think about, or what can you do as a public works leader to sort of, help create a world where what does Mark Ray says, we make normal happen. Mark Ray out in Burnsville, the public works director, says we make normal happen. What can you do to make normal happen, or to normalize, or kind of help people take a deep breath? I don't know. Do you feel like that's anything you can have an impact on, Sean?
One of the things that's great about public works is the impact we can have on safety and in every aspect of safety. So there's, first of all, the safety of our employees. And so how do we keep employees safe? From basic injuries, which can be significant in the type of work we do, to a sense of camaraderie and the sort of the safety that comes from looking out for each other. One of the things that I wasn't surprised by, but it really moved me, was when the void collapsed on West 7th Street. That was an area that I personally had been in the sewers working with the team, and so I'd physically been in the area that collapsed. And I was there with the workers as they were responding to it. And my job was to stay out of the way and work with the businesses. But I saw them just instinctively look out for each other. And that's a part of what you have to do, when you do that work, because your safety depends on your coworkers. And it was really inspiring to see them take care of each other and reflect that safety culture in their response to a safety incident. Now, obviously, that came with fear because, luckily there was nobody in that tunnel when the collapse happened. But that type of internal culture is what we really want to build and support. And I see it all the time in our sewers team because it's inherent to the way they do their work. And in all of our work, we're trying to build that, street maintenance, bridges, all of our work. It plays out in another level on how we design our streets. So there's a huge impact on the design of public infrastructure and safety, sidewalks, streets, intersections. The work we do as we build out these new streets has a huge impact on safety. And then there's just the basic safety for the public, the people watching this, that when you're driving down the street, you want to make sure that, swerving to avoid a pothole, could do damage to somebody who's riding a bicycle next to you. Our teams know that when they're going out and responding to a snow emergency, a snow event of any type, they're making it possible for emergency vehicles to get into neighborhoods. It's not just safety for drivers. They're aware that they're making it safe for police and fire and ambulances to get to where they need to go. It plays out in streetlights. That one of the things, and I'm sure listeners in the Twin Cities know, or viewers, that we've been dealing with copper wire theft, and
Big time.
it impacts your sense of safety when your street isn't lit, and it literally impacts safety, from people who might want to prey on somebody, in a dark situation. So there are in many ways three underlying values that hit all of our work. Safety is one of them. Resilience is another. Equity is another. But safety plays out, in all levels of our work. We do have a new safety coordinator who's right across the hall from us, and he comes in from the oil business, and so he was out on floating oil platforms in the Gulf of Mexico, and his name is Chris Marzoff, brings a fantastic sense of what are those daily things, the policies, the practices that you do to enforce safety, in day-to-day work.
I'd like to meet that guy. Interesting guy.
It's phenomenal to have Chris on the team.
Sounds like a great guy. You've mentioned the word culture a couple of times there, and I want to talk for just a minute. It's one of these giant words that gets thrown around a lot in the world of safety and communication, the worlds that I'm in construction and in, public works environments. What do you think about, do you have a definition of culture, Sean, or what are some of the hallmarks of culture you think about as a leader here?
I tell people that I've never had an engineering class. My last science class was when Ronald Reagan was president, and so I don't bring a formal safety background in any way.
Yeah.
But ironically, I studied sociology and social theory and anthropology, and so questions of culture, I'm very comfortable with. And it's funny that when you have to, in the work, when you have to name culture, you probably have a culture problem, and so we talk about that internally. It's not, it doesn't apply to our conversation, but it's those unspoken values, it's what you reward, it's what you talk about, that values are, I'm going to get anthropological on you, they're descriptive in how you describe your work, and they're prescriptive in terms of what you want to happen. And so rewarding behavior, making sure that if someone is not safe, that, we catch that. That's speaking about safety, but culture just gets to those practices, to how, behaviors, language, all of those factors that play out in kind of unspoken ways in people's day-to-day work. And I will also say we have a lot of work to do in this to make us, ready for the workforce of the future. So I don't speak about this as something we've gotten right all the time, but it's something that's just really, really important to our work.
Well, I can just tell the way you talk about it, Sean, you're very thoughtful, you're very skillful. I see you as a really talented culture builder. And I think what you said is spot on. When you talk about it too much, it's a problem. Somebody once defined it to me as culture is what people do when no one's looking.
Yes, that's a great definition.
Or cultures, somebody's in construction told me, that's the way it is around here, Tom.
Yeah.
It's not bad either. But it's sort of like when the fish can't see the water is okay. When the fish can see the water's got a problem, right? You're swimming in the water. And there's so many different ways to build it, but what is the training you have, Sean, or because you need to influence culture. You want to steer it, and I can tell just by your language, you're very intentional about what you're building here. And how what training do you have, or what training do your leaders have to influence outcomes, whether it's safety or whether it's making sure the street lights work and the hydrants are working and that the stuff of public works is functioning. What training do you have to influence those positive cultures?
I think there's always, room for improvement and more training. At the most basic level, all employees have to go through a sort of dealing with conflict and dealing with differences in the workplace, sort of a basic behavior class, and that really reminds you of the basics. It's the fundamentals. It's oftentimes, unfortunately, what you have to use negatively when you have to deal with somebody who went through that training and still didn't behave. And so there's that. We've done a lot of work on racial equity in terms of doing I'm blanking out the name, but on the continuum of sort of comfortability with diversity and acceptance, where adaptability is sort of the highest value. That we've done that with our leaders. We've done specific like leadership training, especially with some of our frontline staff, because dealing with work that's inherently hard and out, when it's either hot or cold, making sure that those supervisors have the skills that they need, to be effective. So we've done a lot of that culture leadership training at that level. And then obviously on the question of safety, one of the great things about having this new safety officer, just the continual, how do you do flagging on a street, to make sure that something that basic, it's not culture in the way we were talking about it, but it's how people function in their day-to-day. Now, I came from a background of a lot of leadership training programs, a lot of democracy training programs, and so some of my most impactful training was how to make institutions more civic, more democratic, more, able to solve problems.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what I'm hopefully intuitively bringing is how do you solve problems? When it's certainly a top-down environment at some level, but that's not really how the world is working, going forward. So how can everybody be a leader where they are? How can they be a civic leader filling potholes? That role in the public, making the city better for the public, recognizing the bigger picture behind the daily work they do. So I probably got off topic on that, but there's a lot to it.
No, it's so many of us don't have formalized training. I mean, we've learned by the School of Hard Knocks, or maybe we do have some formal training, but in public works, in construction, people get to be a foreman because they're a good worker. They get to be a superintendent because they're still a good worker and they haven't had any management classes, right? How often do you and I see this?
And a lot of requirements, for example, civil engineers, go through all the certifications and the licensing and the professional development that's key to being, protecting public infrastructure. Sometimes that comes with leadership development and management, but not all the time. And so, bringing on those sort of buttressing their technical and professional skills with management skills is important as well. So it varies in our department. There's over 400 people in everything from, we have somebody who has a PhD in asphalt, and that's just kind of mind-blowing and wonderful.
Yeah.
And people who don't have haven't finished high school and are leaders and are doing great work. And so the formal training with folks varies a lot, but the role they play, leading other people and working together is in some ways those skills are pretty common.
Yeah. I'm curious if you have, as we're wrapping up here, a story where you have been able to impact a change or be part of a team that created a change that either went well or didn't. I sometimes find the failures and the flops are even more instructive than the successes. But can you think of something that won't get you fired or anybody else in trouble?
Well,
a story of a change effort. I'm sure you've led many.
I think the work we're doing right now with snow is real, and I mentioned that was one of the fun, exciting challenges. That is, and we're right in the middle of it, but
yeah,
there's no question that it connects to the public, and so there's this enormous public role in that. Snow connects to climate change. So the snows in Minnesota are different than they were 30 years ago. Very different.
Very different.
There's an environmental part of it, and our use of, I could take you down and show you our salt shed, and it is enormous. And some of the employees we have that are most conscious about salt usage are our frontline drivers because they also hunt and fish, and they know that the salt they're putting on the street may end up in a marsh or a waterway that they want to hunt and fish in. And so there's that part of it. There's just the raw physics of snow plowing is fascinating. And there's these system changes that the system we have in place was put here 30 years ago. It was great for the time, but it doesn't seem to be working. And so we have to work with traffic engineers. We have to work with our frontline drivers. We have to work with political leaders. We have to work with the public. We have to work with the media. It plays out in all of these different levels. And that challenge is really exciting, and it's a story that we're going to be, I hope it's a story that we can look back on in 4 years and talk about what we accomplished. Ticketing is a part of it. So the work with police that it is
the vehicles that are parked on the street that are stranded.
And how do there's an equity question, there's just a psychology question. I mean, you want people to move their cars. What's the best way to get that done? And it's a really important service to the public. One of the things the public expects in a city like St. Paul is clean streets in the wintertime. And so with all of those, the story of how do we engage frontline drivers? In the course of the work, went through snowplow operating training. I got my CDL and have done snowplow, I've done work in the wintertime in a snowplow. And that experience gives me a visceral way to express what it's like. It helps to connect with the drivers. It helps to connect with the public. And so helping, and again, I was out in the plow, but I don't actually do any of this work. And so bringing all of these people together on a really complicated problem with a big downside and a big upside. And so we were just meeting on that today, and the mantra we've been telling people is how do we plan for success? And and that could be in a long timeline or a short timeline, but how do we set up work together that we can sustain that's successful? And now I can give stories of failure. We tried a snow plowing effort, one in spring, January or February of 2023, that was a huge flop. It was a public flop. We told the public we thought we could do one thing. We couldn't do it. I was in the media about it, and then huge failure. And now it wasn't.
Why did it fail?
It failed because we didn't anticipate we were setting up new routes on the moment. So we literally were trying to set up an entirely new route system for the city at that moment. And it was hugely complicated. And so part of what we did, or part of what I did, was say to the public, here's what happened. Here's what we tried. Here's why it didn't work. And there was this long Twitter thread, and it began, and so this is a story about failure, not about success, that I told an NPR reporter that we had 75% of our routes done, or 85. I got back to realize that was not true. And now I didn't know it was not true, but it was not true. And in an effort to sort of save my bacon, I didn't sleep that night, and I got up in the morning and I'm like, okay, I'm worried about my reputation and the trust with the public. And so we said, here's what we did, here's why it didn't work, here's all the things. And what was encouraging about that was I hope it was not motivated by doing the right thing. It was motivated maybe by fear. But I think public saw that we were trying to be transparent, and that turned into a weird success. In that
Interesting.
They didn't like the outcome. The outcome was still not acceptable. But that trust with the community in all of our work, in public works, is really important. And so I think at the end of that, what they saw was we as a city, we as a department, were trying to do something differently, and were then transparent about it just didn't work. And that, while it was a failure, hopefully that built trust that, we can leverage going forward in our work. That part of the reason that both success and failure are important to talk about is public works touches more people in any city than any other department. And so if you think about when you flush the toilet, when you walk on the sidewalk, when the street light comes on, when you cross a bridge, when you drive down a street, garbage, recycling, all of this relates to public works. And so we work in asphalt and garbage and, sewage and concrete and steel, but it impacts, real humans. And so trying to mesh those two, is key to what we're trying to accomplish.
I love the story of the admission of your mistake, coming clean on it. And there's lots of data that shows that if you're doing the right thing most of the time, and you make even a big mistake, but you come clean on it, that you can actually increase the level of trust with the public. And I don't know if that happened or not. But
I hope so. And I was surprised by the degree to which people were generous in their response. And you can only say sorry so many times. So part of what I remind our team is we've only got so many sorries in the bucket.
Absolutely true.
But I think that started a series of conversations that I think it certainly built a connection between our department and the public.
Sure. What's the essence of this new plowing strategy that's going to create the success?
What we think is snow emergencies and wintertime operations are really about moving parked cars in residential areas. That's it. That snow emergencies are a structure to move cars so we can plow the streets. People don't move cars like they used to, and we've lost our ability to ticket like we used to, which is another. And we can't. It's not something we did wrong. It's just the courts have said we can't issue paper tickets. And so, but what we've realized is an alternate side parking, where what we're testing is every Sunday afternoon on a residential street, you move your car to the other side. And what that allows us to do is, and you just keep it there all winter long. So the message to the public becomes just keep your car where it should be legally parked, period. Rather than move it at 9 o'clock and then again at 7 o'clock and then again if the street's not been cleared, which is just confusing. And it's confusing if you're busy or speaking another language. So we hope that in this model, which we're still testing, you can come out your door on Monday and say, whoops, my car is on, everybody else is on the other side of the street. I don't have to, I don't even have to speak English or read. And that allows our drivers to go in sooner and more often. And then what it does mean is the side where your car is parked stays unplowed until the next Sunday afternoon. But it's much easier to go in and just clean one lane when you've had time to clean, 2/3 of the street. So we tested it in 2 neighborhoods last year. Change is hard for the public. One of my mentors said, everybody wants things to be better, but nobody wants them to be different. And, and I repeat that.
That's really good.
And for snow plowing in St. Paul to be better, we believe it has to be a different model. So what we hope is that over time, in a year or two, that this will be the model we move to. But we've got to test it. We've got to engage the public. We've got to come up with new routes. But we think that that's where we're going.
Very exciting. You may have the idea that we've had less snow for the last few years on your side, but I think we're due for a big one. We're due for a big one any year now.
I think the climate of the future is the winters we've had the last 3 winters. One where we got 94 inches of snow and the most precipitation ever. And so we had 3rd most snow, and we had 3 major rainfalls every month, December, January.
We did, February. Didn't we? In the winter, that was so strange for Minnesota.
And the rain is usually followed by cold, and so it slushes up the snow,
and then it freezes.
And
nightmare.
It's as hard as the roads we're trying to plow.
Yeah.
So, and then some winters will have nothing. like we did 2 winters ago and just a little bit this winter. So we're trying to prepare for what's coming, not just improve what we've had.
Wow. So interesting, Sean. Any final word on the waste management? I know you've had a huge change here. St. Paul is now picking up its own waste. Right?
Yeah. If I were to recommend, the leader we have, Sarah Haas, who runs our solid waste and recycling, is just a phenomenal leader at every level.
I've heard that.
That was an entirely new operation that we haven't had garbage. We haven't provided garbage service since the mid-1980s. And so we had to establish routes. We had to bring on a new provider for 90. We're doing 10%, and FCC Environmental is doing 90%. We took over customer service. We took over billing. We had to buy a building. We had to buy trucks. It really was like starting up an entirely new business inside city government. And there's a lot of unhappiness with the way things had gone. But there's a lot of concern in the transition, but I think we're on a much better path that's not just about collecting trash, but reducing waste. And so we think this is a better, more efficient way to collect trash and recycling. The path we're really on, though, is about reducing waste. So getting more into the recycling stream, reducing people's waste, what they've put back. So that is both a new operation and kind of shifting directions at the same time. So, and it's also one of those things that the public is hyper aware of, that everybody produces garbage and recycling every day. You want it to work well. But I think we're on a really good path to improve service and make the city cleaner.
Awesome. I love your passion, Sean. This guy's an amazing public works leader. How can people find you out there?
I'm on Twitter at Sean Kershaw. I'm on Blue Sky at Sean Kershaw.
Okay.
And then the city's webpage, stpaul.gov.
Okay.
The public works page has a ton of information. Really great website.
Okay, and I'm sure you're on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn.
Sean, Sean.
Kershaw.
Yeah. Privileged to be with you, Sean. Any final words from you? Final thought?
I mean, you've practiced this, so it's been great to talk with you and learn from you, and you've been helping my team learn. So this is it's really exciting work and exciting time, and it's a great topic.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Sean.
Thank you, Tom.
All righty.